for the spy intrigue part of it, is that at all based on like actual historical events? Because I know there were some assassination attempts and assassinations during the Regency period.
It is not at all based on any kind of, and I'm actually very careful. I don't put the date, like I don't put the year that any of this is happening. I try to keep context clues kind of as vague as possible. I'll mention things that have happened in the past. I'll mention inventions, stuff like that. And it some people ask me if it's Regency, some people ask me if it's Victorian. I always just say yes. I'm like, it's whatever you want it to be. In my head, personally, I do think it veers more towards Victorian, and you'll occasionally hear reference to the Queen, and you'll occasionally hear like one of the things that happens in this is that we do have Lily's book, the third one. She ends up with a very intelligent man who's an inventor, and he has invented a steam-powered sex machine, which didn't exist. I mean, they did, but they had a tendency to blow up. So
That's a little problematic.
right. There were apparently, like, I spent a whole afternoon like researching, but with the technology of the time, there were some issues with like the boiler and the release of steam and having it in such a small
All right, so tell me more about this research
yeah.
like journey. Is it is this stuff are there like museums or specific
Oh yeah,
research?
there's museums, there's books, there's a lot of online articles. I mean, we have in several museums. I actually visited one in Amsterdam, of course, that was a museum of sex, and they had displays, and you can see a lot of pictures of displays of like the machine, not the machines, like, but the steam powered ones, but like actual machines that were used that were mostly hand crank because that's what didn't blow up. There's a variety of historical sex toys and articles about them. There's videos. There's a wonderful historian. She goes by Kinky History, and I know she's on both YouTube and TikTok, and she's just fabulous. She always has like really great videos on all sorts of like historical naughty things that I just adore. But yeah, I mean, I had heard of them, but I'd heard that steam powered sex machines were like a thing, and I was really excited about it. So I went to research them and found out that actually they weren't really a thing because they did tend to explode, and that was something that didn't seem
Yeah.
to be overcome. So I decided that for my purposes, my hero was a very, very good inventor, and he figured out a way around it. Unfortunately, his designs and machine were lost to time, so that's why we don't have them today.
Yeah, you never know what got lost to
Because
time.
he kept it for personal use,
Yeah.
like, and then his children, when they inherited, were probably like, oh God, get rid of it.
All right. Well, one thing I want to ask is, you write across a broad variety of romance subgenres, contemporary, paranormal, historical. When you write historical, what brings you back to it? And maybe what does it offer you that the other genres don't offer?
So I actually wanted to major in history when I was
Mm.
in college for a little bit. I love history. I read history nonfiction books for fun. There are specific time periods that I get really invested in, and the Victorian time period was one of them, to a lesser extent Regency. But I read a ton, and I started once I found out that there was historical romance. I started reading a ton of that, and it kind of I have part of the reason I do genre hop so much is because I have trouble writing in the same world two books in a row. It's like I finish a book and stuff changes. I have outlines. I don't completely pants it, as we say. I usually have an outline. I have a plot. I know what's going to happen. But as I'm writing, things change. So a lot of the time what I really need is after I finish a book in my contemporary series, while I'm writing that book, a lot of the time I'm thinking about the historical, which is the next thing I'll be writing. And then because when I finish that contemporary book, things will have changed, and I'm going to need to think through those changes and how that's going to change the next contemporary book. And so I'll do that while I'm writing my next historical. So basically, instead of taking like breaks to do all this thinking, I'm just working on something else that I've already thought about. And
That's a
that's that
really clever way to handle that.